What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. As you guys are well aware, we are living in crazy times where nothing seems to make sense anymore, and I don't actually have any stories that I've written down or anything. I've just been collecting several different news stories that have stood out in my mind over the past week or so, maybe the past couple of 2 or 3 weeks. And I've kind of been idle on making political content for the past week or so, and that's just because I needed a break from it, man. I mean, this stuff just, you know, when you're looking at insanity over and over and over, I think the stuff kind of starts to rub off on you after a while, and so I needed to take a break from that and just do a couple of repair videos and stuff, and that's what we did. So now we're going to get back into the news. What's been going on? Well, I'm sure you guys have seen it by now, but yesterday, a white supremacist tried to break into the United States Capitol with a truck, a U-Haul truck. And the reason they know he's a white supremacist is because the Capitol Police pulled out a Nazi flag and they proudly spread it out so the media would be able to get pictures of it, for proof that he was a white supremacist. Now, here's the weird thing about this. The guy was not white. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He was an Asian, I believe, and this is right on the heels of, like, a couple of weeks ago, there was an incident down in Texas, I believe, and I don't remember all the particulars of it, but I remember it was another situation like this where a Hispanic male attacked a bunch of other people, I think they were Hispanics as well, and killed several of them. And the media immediately said he was a white supremacist. Now, I don't know where in the world they came up with that one, and we're not going to really focus on that one. We're going to focus on this one that was just yesterday, where this guy went and rented a U-Haul truck, I guess, and tried to break through the barrier at the Capitol. And it looks and smells like a false flag that they put very little effort in. I mean, really, guys, if you're going to try to fool us into thinking that everyone is a white supremacist, I think you should probably try a little harder than just, I mean, it was an entire U-Haul truck, and the only thing the guy had was a Nazi flag. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up, guys. It's unreal fake news that's going on all around the country right now. Now, am I saying it's completely impossible for anyone that's not a white person to be a white supremacist or to have those kinds of tendencies? No. I mean, I believe there are people out there that are probably, hate their own race and stuff like that. But that's the exception to the rule. And my point with mentioning this article is they're so desperate to try to find anyone that they can link to white supremacy that they're getting Hispanics and Asians and framing them in this white supremacy trap. It's just unreal. I mean, I doubt very seriously either one of those guys were white supremacists. For one, they weren't white. I mean, so that's kind of like, 90% chance they're not white supremacists. I mean, this is just unreal. But this shows you how little how few actual white supremacists are out there, because, I mean, I guarantee you, the way the FBI and the CIA and the DHS and all the other alphabet agencies work, they'll just have, 15 or 20. What was it with the Governor Whitmer deal? Like, there was like 17 total, and like 15 of those guys or 14 of those guys were feds in that group that was supposedly going to go after Governor Whitmer or whatever, So, I mean, the point is that they're laying these traps all over the place, and they're not able to get anyone other than an Asian and a Mexican a week or two ago, I guess it was. A Mexican national, I believe, is what that guy was. So anyway, I find that very, very interesting. Another story that I've really been following, and what really bothers me about this story in particular is that we've reached a point here in the United States of America where it's no longer a given that you have the right to self-defense. I'm sure you heard about the whole deal, the New York City subway attack, and the reason I'm bringing this one up is I was talking to my wife about it last night, and she hadn't even heard of it. I was like, oh my God, that's a big story. You haven't heard of that? So it made me think that there are probably a lot of other people that haven't heard about it. So I'll give you the quick rundown here. About a week or two ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, there was a guy, something Neely, I can't remember his first name, And basically he was a Michael Jackson impersonator. He was a black guy, and he was walking up and down inside the subway cars, apparently, allegedly, yelling and screaming at people, threatening to kill them, stuff like this. And this ex-Marine who was like, I think he was like 27, 28 years old, something like that, an ex-Marine, wasn't having it. So he put the guy in a restraining hold, a chokehold, and there were two other guys, one of which was black, one of which was Hispanic or Asian or something like that, and they were helping to restrain this guy until the next stop so they could get, police in there to deal with this crazy person, right? And that was threatening to kill people and getting irate and belligerent and stuff. Well, they detained him, and I think the guy's name was Daniel Penny, if I'm not mistaken, curly-headed guy. Anyway, ex-Marine, he restrained this guy with a chokehold, and it didn't kill him instantly, but I guess after the chokehold was released, the guy was non-responsive, and they were trying to resuscitate the guy. So even this guy that put him in the chokehold was trying to revive the guy until the paramedics got there. At least that's my understanding of it. And when the paramedics got there, they got him, took him to the hospital, and I believe either on the way or once the guy, Neely, got to the hospital, he died. Probably related to asphyxiation, I can't say it, asphyxiation, something like that. He choked to death, and I mean, it's a classic example of, I'm going to use some foul language here to be descriptive, but it's a classic example of fuck around and find out. I mean, if you don't want to get choked to death, don't act like a damned wild animal on the train, right? I mean, that seems like that's pretty self-explanatory. Don't act irate, don't act belligerent, don't yell in people's faces, or you might fuck around and find out. The wrong old boy ain't gonna put up with that stuff, and he'll put you in a chokehold, and you might end up dead. Now, I don't think Mr. Penny's intentions were to kill Mr. Neely, but instead just to restrain him. But nevertheless, Alvin Braggs, the DA appointed by George Soros, or let's say he was funded by George Soros to help him get the job. In other words, he's a puppet of George Soros, the same guy that's been going after Trump on the Stormy Daniels stuff, and the same guy that's been slapping violent felons on the wrists and letting them out without even having bail or anything. They're just catch and release, just letting them go. This guy decided he's going to press charges on Mr. Penny, and I think the guy's name is Daniel Penny, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the media has been going all crazy about it, saying it's racism, on and on and on. Their typical stuff, trying to start up another 2020 riot, George Floyd situation. And it's just not working, because everyone that knew this guy, Neely, knew that he was batshit crazy and probably should have been institutionalized. We've touched on it a little bit in some of the videos we've done in the past, and the United States has a real problem with mental illness and just letting people be free until they screw up enough that they end up getting thrown in prison, where their mental illness is not addressed or dealt with or anything like that. They're not treated for mental illness in prison, other than just getting their ass kicked over and over and over. And I mean, that's not right. That's not the right way to do things. And I don't know what happened back in the 90s sometime. The United States just basically got rid of all of our mental illness, nut houses, for lack of a better word, our places where we would put these people that were a danger to themselves and to society. Now, they're just allowed to roam up and down the subway, and you're not supposed to do anything, or else you'll be charged with manslaughter, which is what Daniel Penny is facing. So, last time I checked, this is the United States of America, and we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And so those people that felt threatened by Mr. Neely have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that right there alone should ensure that we always have the right to self-defense, because you have the right to defend your life. And so anyway, I know most of you guys that are watching this video, you know this stuff, so I'm preaching to the choir here, but maybe there's a few people out there that don't know it, and they can go and do the research and get informed and learn that, the United States, we have the right to self-defense. And I watched this unfolding years and years ago over in England, when Basically, the English government decided, I guess, and they did it through incrementalism, like always, a slow drip, you know, but they basically have rendered from my understanding, the English people have very little or no right to self-defense anymore. The criminals have more rights than so if someone's breaking in your house in the middle of the night, maybe they're on top of your wife, and you wake up and somebody's on top of your wife taking his clothes off, trying to rape your wife. You're not allowed to do anything to kill that guy. If you do anything to hurt or kill that guy in England, you'll be, labeled a criminal or whatever. And it's just unreal that the people over there have put up with that sort of thing and allowed that to happen. But then again, I can't criticize or be too critical of the English people, because I look around the United States of America and I see a whole bunch of people that just don't give a damn. They're not paying attention to anything, and they're letting their liberties be taken away over and over and over. So one other story I wanted to touch on here, and I may even hit a couple of more before we go out here, but this was huge, man. This was a huge story. So yesterday, and I can't remember the name of the college where this took place, but you should be able to find this if you go do a quick search. Yesterday, I saw this news article about a female black college professor up in New York, and the only reason I remember it's in New York is because she lives in the Bronx, and it's up in New York somewhere, and so I'm sure nothing will happen to her. She'll get a slap on the wrist after all this is said and done, but she goes up to a table kind of like this where these kids, students at that college were out in the, I'm assuming kind of the forum area where, people can congregate and stuff like that. And they had a pro-life display set up with lots of little different information and pamphlets, and they were trying to talk to people about pro-life. This crazy ass liberal professor comes out and starts screaming at them like, I can't remember all the stuff she was saying, but like, fuck this, what the fuck is this, you can't do this, you don't know what you're talking about. And she starts attacking the young man that's there, and he doesn't know what to do because he realizes this is a professor attacking me, an adult female attacking me, and I have very little recourse that I can do without getting suspended out of this school. I imagine that's what was going through his head. Anyway, he's kind of trying to be really, really calm and cordial and just polite to her and everything like that. And he's saying, well, we're just trying to, let people know about abortion and stuff like that, teach people about abortion. And she fires off and she's like, you can't even have a baby, so that means you have no right to talk about this, blah, blah, blah. And then she gets all, I don't want to say violent, but she gets disruptive. And she starts, screaming profanities and flinging all their pamphlets off the table and getting, acting like she's going to get violent. Well, then she went away, and a reporter later on, I guess, knew where she lived and went to her house to do an interview. She came outside of the door, put a machete to the reporter's throat, and talking about she was going to kill him and on and on and on if he didn't get out of here. And then, if that's not bad enough, she chased him down the block and she said, don't come back to my block, blah, blah, blah. This is New York. You can't, like she owns the fucking block or something, right? And again, the reason I bring this story up is because I guarantee you that woman will serve 0 time behind bars for threatening someone's life with a deadly weapon. On the other hand, if that had been some, Republican, labeled a MAGA supporter, labeled a white supremacist or something, they would be turning this person's life over. So the double standard in the justice system is apparent if you have eyes to see and ears to hear and you're willing to listen to countering viewpoints. But the problem is that, I don't know, they say it's half the country. I don't believe the numbers are actually that high that are actually leftists. But I don't know, man. I mean, I walk around sometimes and I see some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life, and I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you that damn dumb? And they are. The truth is, yes, they are. They are that dumb. And that's a failure in our education system. And also, to back up to what I was saying a moment ago, is it's also about the mental problems that we're not willing to face here in this country. It's like we're just suddenly, since the 90s, we just pretend like it doesn't happen. We're supposed to ignore it or whatever. I mean, If I were that guy on the train, I probably would have done the same thing. If I were, what's his name again? I can't remember. Penny. If I were Penny, even though I'm not an ex-Marine, I probably would have done the same thing because I'm not used to that sort of stuff. I'm from the South, so people aren't like that. We don't use public transportation. And I find it very fascinating that one of the most dangerous places there are in New York City, Chicago, all these big metropolises that have subways and public transit, right? The most dangerous places to be are often on these trains and subways and this public transportation, these city buses and stuff like this. And yet the Democrats have been pushing for decades and decades and decades to expand our public transit. Why is that? Why is it that everything that they want us to do seems self-destructive? Why is it that every policy the Democrats have seem to be anti-human? Certainly anti-Constitution, certainly anti-Declaration of Independence, certainly anti-life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, anti-free speech, anti-Second Amendment, anti-Fourth and Fifth Amendment. These people are... I've said it many times, and I think the word has kind of lost some of its meaning because it gets thrown around a lot, but they're communists, man. They're fucking communists that are hell-bent on destroying our country. That's what the whole Build Back Better thing was all about. Biden came in, said, we're going to build back better. Well, to build something back better, first you have to destroy it. Tear it down to the foundation or beyond the foundation to rebuild it, to build it back better. And what do they mean by that? They mean a socialist, communist utopia here in the United States of America. This has been going on. People have been, pushing for this communism and socialism since Cloward and Piven back in like 1966 or whenever that was. These people have just been slowly eroding our rights and our liberties for at least the last 50 years, probably more realistically like 75 to 100 years. You could blame it on the creation of the Fed. You could blame it on a lot of different things. You could blame it on the American people being asleep at the wheel and not actually paying attention to what's going on. I heard somebody recently, I don't remember if it's Vivek Ramaswamy, and I know that's kind of a hard name to say. He's an Indian guy, and he's got a kind of a weird name and everything. But the stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy is saying is exactly the way I feel about this country. This guy, he may not be president because I don't think anyone will elect him because he's the newcomer. He's got a strange name, stuff like this. I don't think he'll be elected as president, but I'm glad he's in the race because I think he's going to change the conversation to important liberty issues that we all need to be addressing on a daily basis. With when other liberals come up to you and start arguing for whatever public transit, or when they start arguing for any other socialist program that they're pushing, you can have something to fire back with. Vivek is actually raising the bar on the level of conversation that we're going to be having in the 2024 election cycle. So I'm excited about that. Not that I'm that excited that things will be any different than 2020. And I think you probably smell what I'm stepping in there. We're in a lot of trouble with our election system, and I can't even talk about it. That's how much trouble we're in here in the United States. So I've been banned from speaking about election integrity or, questioning the election and things like that. So I don't know if I would get nailed for talking about the future elections or not, but I do know this: 2020, I'm not allowed to talk about. It's off limits for some reason. And I find that fascinating. When they start banning certain kinds of speech, it tells me they have no defense against the accusations that are being, thrown about. And so that's why they must ban people that are logical and realistic and remember things. A lot of people don't remember more than about 2 or 3 weeks, it seems. When I meet people and I tell them about something that happened 6 months ago and they're like, whoa, sometimes maybe they never heard about it to begin with. But I think oftentimes the American populace has like a short memory span, and we don't tend to remember things longer than about, 3 or 4 months or whatever, and then it just goes away in the ether. And I get it. It's, you're being bombarded daily. And I've forgotten a lot of stuff myself too, so I'm not exempt from that. I mean, there's so much stuff. You're bombarded with it daily that you might forget other things that aren't such a big deal. Or maybe they were a big deal at the time, but they're less of a deal now because an even bigger story came out that's got all of your focus and your attention on it. So beware, guys. False flags are not only happening right now, but they're going to continue to happen because Biden all along has been pushing this white supremacy lie, saying that these ultra MAGA Republicans are all white supremacists and they're evil and they're trying to destroy democracy and on and on and on. And what's so funny about it is we're a constitutional republic, not a democracy. The founding fathers were dead set against pure democracy. We have aspects of democracy in our system, but we're not a pure democracy because the founders realized that pure democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. And that's the truth. That is the truth. We don't want that, ever. And in fact, one of the things, that's why I mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy's, one of the things he's been talking about is actually like I don't remember if he called it a litmus test or what he called it, but basically a test, a civics test. Just kind of like the one that you have to take if you're going to become a legal United States citizen through the legal immigration process. Then you have to be able to answer these questions about the country. And if you can't answer these questions, then you can't vote. You're not allowed to vote. And I think that's a good idea. We've got way too many people voting that have no idea of what the hell's going on in this country. And that's very dangerous. You can't do that. And of course, the Democrats want to lower the voting age. I want to raise the voting age. And I've even given lots of thought about the original way that it was set up. Originally, you had to be a property owner, a landowner, to vote. And I think that we might ought to look into that again, because I'm not saying we necessarily need to go, head first into it, but we need to definitely look into the benefits of that because, it's like the difference between a renter and a property owner. A property owner is going to take care of that place better because it's their investment. They have a vested interest in the area, in the property, so they're going to care more about that property than some renter that comes in and punches a bunch of holes in the walls and, lets their dog piss and shit all over the carpet and, lets their kids draw on the walls, things like that. You guys have all seen it. I'm not making this up. So it's beneficial for people that have a vested interest in the country, that own land, to be able to vote and have their vote actually have more power than someone who doesn't have land. So I don't know. We're getting into the weeds here, but and I don't think any of this stuff's actually gonna happen or change or anything like that. But if we wanted to change things, that's one of the ways we could do it. Is we could get rid of the low information voters and not allow them to vote in the process, because it's just, again, it's playing Russian roulette. We're allowing these other people that have heads full of mush, many of them are mentally ill, mentally unstable, and they're unable to formulate their own thoughts. So they're perfect little puppets. They'll say whatever they're told to say. So when these Democrats are going around doing their ballot harvesting and stuff like that, it's pretty easy to manipulate these people into voting the way they want them to vote. And also the mainstream news media does a great job of that the other 364 days of the year, whenever the liberals aren't knocking doors and stuff like that. So guys, we're living in freaking bizarro world. We're in a hell of a lot of trouble, and most people are just bebopping along like nothing's wrong, like nothing's ever changed, like it's always been this way. And it hasn't always been this way. I'm telling you, just in my lifetime, the United States, I've watched it fall from a great nation, a superpower, a moral nation, to morally bankrupt, pushing all of these weird LGBTQ agendas and all this other weird stuff that has no business being in our homes, on our TVs, stuff like this. It's the demoralization, as Yuri Bezmenov famously said back in the late 70s, early 80s. It's the demoralization of the United States of America. All of these Democrat policies are anti-human, anti-United States of America, pro-communism, anti-capitalism, anti-capitalism. They hate capitalism. It's like the bane of their existence. And so, how do you break through to people like that? And I would argue you don't. They've been so brainwashed that there's no way to reach them. So I'm not even attempting to reach people like that anymore with my channel. I'm just talking to the people that are like-minded like us, that understand we're on very, very thin ice. And all it's going to take is one stomp in the wrong place, and we're going to all fall through. And then many of us will freeze to death, especially the people that haven't been prepping up and preparing for the collapse. But it's coming. It's coming. I feel it, man. Whether it be World War III, the wide open borders that Biden has encouraged and rolled out the red carpet for a lot of these people, as he calls asylum seekers. They're not asylum seekers. They're invaders. They're coming to steal everything away from us. Everything. Our entire country, our founding, everything gone, vaporized by the UN agenda called replacement migration. Look it up. Go check it out. I'm not making it up. Of course, saying that right there will probably get me put into a certain category, labeled a certain thing. You know, unreal. Unfreaking real. So anyway, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think about all these stories. What are you paying attention to right now? What are you stocking up on to prepare yourself and your family for the collapse of everything?